Hey everyone, my name's Lucas. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to be doing a quick demo of the Joey Sturgis Tones Maximizer plugin, and I'm also going to be talking about some things related to maximization, limiting, and clipping that you can use to your advantage to get your mixes to sound more punchy, professional, and loud. Interesting because in previous years, like a long time ago, kind of when I was starting out, clipping and that type of thing was sort of a taboo topic because it generally wasn't really desirable to achieve digital clipping. But these days there's actually a lot of interesting plugins out there on the market, like this one, that will allow you to do very controlled clipping on your mix or on particular instruments that will help you get a really cool sound. And so just before I get too into the plugin, just wanted to talk briefly about what exactly clipping is and what exactly a maximizer is, because I sort of think of them as being in two different categories. So what a clipper does is it essentially truncates all of the audio waveforms that you're sending to it. It will take your waveform and it will cut off the peaks, and it will do that abruptly. And that can sound very similar to distortion or saturation or those types of plugins, whatever you want to call it, because it will incur some amount of saturation that will have an audible effect on the sound of the music. But if you use it in a controlled way, it can help you achieve loudness, it can enhance the music, it can add harmonics to make things sound fatter. On the other hand, we have limiters and maximizer plugins, which fall under the subcategory of dynamics processing. So what dynamics processing does is it modifies the dynamics of your music, which means the loudest and quietest parts. So a limiter will set a limit to how loud the music can be, and it will turn anything down that goes past that. And maximizers are basically like limiters, but they have specific feature set that will be more centered around boosting the overall volume of whatever you have going into that maximizer. So what it will do is it will try to retain as much clarity as possible and just boost the volume without getting pumping effect that you would get with a standard limiter. But there's a lot of overlap between the two, so you could use a regular limiter to do a lot of the same things that a maximizer would do. So why do we have a clipper and a maximizer in the same plugin these days, like this one, the JST maximizer? So with clipping and maximization, those are two powerful tools that you can use to essentially boost the volume of your song. But not only that, you can add punch, you can add clarity, you can really do quite a lot of interesting things, as you'll see here in this video. And so that's why it seems like having both of those all in one box seems like a really smart idea. So here's what our instrumental sounds like with the plugin turned off. Okay, now I'm going to turn on JST Maximizer. Cool, so it sounds awesome. I've dialed it in a little bit here, and I'm going to walk you through some of the things that I chose to do. And this will also reveal some interesting workflow ideas for you. So the first thing that I like to do is I'll engage auto trim, because for the purpose of this video, at least for this mix, I'm going to make sure that the level's consistent. Otherwise it can blow your ears out. With this maximize button, we can crank this up a bit to get the maximizer working. You can press this button here to use a boatload of different circuits that they have here. So I have this set to a 3-band clipper, and you can actually locate the bands right here by switching to Spectrum, and you can adjust them independently here. And you also have this waveform view as well, where you can adjust the overall threshold. So let me just show you what it sounds like when I crank this up. So once we get up here, we get into audible clipping territory. The next knob that I wanted to show you that I find particularly useful is this sauce button. I've set it to excite mode. I'll show you what that sounds like. So we're adding excitation there, which I find to be very powerful. There's a low-end compressor that's really useful, and also an overall tone knob that will essentially do a tilt EQ using whatever you set this crossover to. There's a mono bass function, which I've engaged, which I find very useful, and also a bass enhancer. I'm going to twiddle these two knobs and let you hear what that does. Very, very powerful there. And then lastly, the other knob that I find extremely handy is the stereo enhance knob. I'll crank this up and play it for you. Next, I'm going to move on to drums. So here's a drum recording by a fabulous drummer named Sam Ruff, who played at my house a little while ago, and I thought I would use this for this demo because it's a really interesting use case of this plugin. So here's what his drum track sounds like with everything turned off. So using that threshold right there, you can get it as dirty as you want. We also have a mix knob here in case you want it in parallel as well, so it's super useful. And a couple other interesting features that I haven't even mentioned yet. So there's an optimize button. So what it will do is it'll scan your audio and set the optimal input gain setting, so that's really useful. And it will also match the loudness of any of these settings that you might want to match to if you're using this for mastering, so that's also really useful as well. So I think it sounds awesome on these drums. I'm going to be using it on drum buses in the future. So I think that's really cool. And I also showed you what it sounded like when you really boost the gain on that one. So lastly, I'm going to be showing you how I use this JST maximizer plugin on guitars as well, of all things, because it has some really powerful multi-band use that will be very perceivable on this particular instrument. And I think you'll love it. So check this out here. I'll play you the guitars with everything turned off. And here's with it on. First of all, I've not done much with the threshold here. We're in the 3-band clipper mode. I've boosted it by around 4.5 dB. And the mix is all the way up. The input is turned down a little bit because the guitars are a bit hot running into it. And then the main thing that I actually did was this tone knob. So what I did is I set a crossover of around like 4K, and I boosted the tone to get it brighter. And I also added excitation as I've done. So we have a bunch of different really useful effects here, but I think excite is my favorite so far. And then what I'll show you is if you switch to the spectrum view, I've actually modified the EQ spectrum a bit to essentially get it to scoop the mids a bit, so we'll listen to that in a second, and I've gotten it to pull out some lows as well, so check it out. I think this plugin sounds really awesome. It's really useful on a bunch of different things, not just for mixing and mastering a full project, but you can use it on individual tracks as well, especially drums and aggressive guitars. I've found that this plugin's super useful, especially with the multi-band functionality. So let me know what you guys think of the plugin. And thank you so much to Joey Sturgis Tones for making these amazing audio tools that I never imagined having these days. And let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you all in the next video. Take it easy.